Hi, it's Mark from TLR. I'm here with Bernie Pollock, Pollock Automotive in Vancouver, Vancouver's best auto service experience, 24-time winners of best auto repair in Vancouver, as voted by their customers. And we're going to talk about a Jeep Grand Cherokee today. How you doing, Bernie?
Doing very well today.
So, 2005 Jeep Grand Cherokee had a problem with the front end. What was going on with this vehicle?
The owner of the vehicle actually brought it into us for a maintenance service, our oil change and basic inspection, along with some oil leak diagnostics. We'd actually done some previous oil leak diagnosis on the vehicle. There was still some leakage. So he wanted to figure out what was going on with that and fix that. So that's why he came in. However, when Nigel, our technician who was working on the vehicle, drove it in, he heard this very loud thunking noise in the front end of the vehicle, like extremely loud. So he figured there's something worth looking at there, something serious going on.
So you guys dug in. What was causing the noise?
Yeah, so Nigel had a look underneath and kind of wiggled a few things around, found that the mount on the rear end of the differential was completely worn out, causing a huge amount of play. And I'll show a video in a few minutes, which illustrates perfectly what was happening.
So what would cause that mount to wear? Aren't they supposed to stay in place for a really long time?
Well, they are, but it is a rubber mount. It's allowed to have a bit of movement. So, over time, the movement amplifies and eventually the mount tears, and maybe they could have made it tougher. But there's always, I think the manufacturers, they always try to balance the comfort ride of the vehicle versus durability. And so sometimes they'll put a softer rubber bushing on a control arm, which wears out faster, but there's a more comfortable ride to the vehicle. So it's kind of a balance and compromise. But I'd say just wear and tear, old age is kind of what's caused it. It's a 2005 Jeep. That makes it 17 years old. So it's had a bit of usage.
So what's involved in repairing the mount, the broken mount?
Removing the differential. So the axle shafts have to be removed from the differential. The drive shaft from the transfer case needs to be unbolted. And then there's basically 3 mounting points that need to be removed. And then the differential just drops down. So let's just look at some pictures right now. So this is a little video that shows the wear in the differential. I'll play it a couple of times. So I didn't do an after video, but basically that should not be movable. That's actually with a hand grabbing the differential and just pushing it up and down. So clearly a lot of wear and definitely the cause of the loud thunk. This is the differential out. This is the mount. There's supposed to be a piece in the middle here. You'll see it in the next picture, but that's basically what was left of the mount. You can see to the untrained eye, it does look pretty bad, I'd say. This is the whole differential assembly here. There's the new mount. There's what's left of the old mount. It's a little dark in this picture, but there's sort of an airspace here. The mount is solidly attached in this spot. So about 50% of it is solidly attached and the rest allows some movement of the mount. And I guess, from an engineering perspective, they want a little bit of cushioning. It's a more comfortable drive, less harshness. But of course, if it was, solidly mounted, it would never wear out, but it would create a lot more of a rough feel to the vehicle. There's the differential. There are 3 mounts, and we did actually replace all of them. So there's the front one that was completely worn out, brand new. The rear mount, hang on, I'm trying to think. No, this is the upper mount. This is the one that was worn out. So you can see the sort of solid pieces here and the air gaps here. This is the right side of the mount. And then there's a front mount here, which is a bolt-on piece. One more picture. There's the differential before we replaced it and mounted in the vehicle. So you can see the front mount is bolted in here. Then the other mount would have been up in this corner here. And then the worn out mount buried way up in the frame of the vehicle. So there's our show for the day.
So how common of an issue is this on Jeeps?
We work on a lot of these. This is actually the first time I think we've replaced these mounts, but the parts are readily available. So I'd say that it's a fairly common wear out item. But surprisingly, it's the first time we've replaced them.
I guess it depends on how they're used too. If something's been off-road an awful lot and getting pounded a lot up and down over rocks, etc., it's going to have a little bit faster wear than something that's just been driven on the highway.
Absolutely. And most of these vehicles, most people who drive these vehicles, most SUVs, they never even get off-road or maybe the odd little, light gravel road. But yeah, for people who get out and use them a lot, this is going to wear these a lot faster. And, not that it's a bad thing. I mean, it's just a normal part of wear and tear with this design of vehicle. But yeah, certainly if you're just driving on the highway and using it gently, these will not wear that fast.
Was there anything else to replace other than the 3 mounts that you changed?
That was all we did. That's all that needed to be done on this particular job. We did change the differential fluid while we had it out as well. Some that did drain out as we took the axles out, and it was a good time to do a full fluid change. So we did do that.
Anything that a Jeep owner can do to prevent this kind of wear and tear, to prevent these mounts from wearing out?
Well, I think we just talked briefly about usage. And I think, if you're going to accelerate full throttle every time at a light, you're going to wear stuff out. Probably your engine mounts worse than the diff mounts. But I think the key is just to, drive it with a bit of gentleness. If you're off road, don't go flying down the road and flying over bumps, just go a little gentler. But other than that, I mean, things will wear as they wear. There's not much you can do with these. They're just a solid piece and they'll just do what they do.
And were there any other repairs on this Jeep at this service?
Yeah, actually the engine oil pan was leaking. So we replaced the gasket, and actually having the differential out made that a little bit of an easier job because the differential's in the way of the oil pan. Also, the radiator was leaking as well. So we replaced that too. But those two jobs are a completely different story. We've probably done a podcast on Jeep radiator leaks. They're kind of complicated to replace in these vehicles. So I think we did one at some point in the past. Maybe it's time to do another one sometime soon. But yeah, that was it. And an A service, a basic oil change A service.
How are Jeep Grand Cherokees for reliability?
Well, they're kind of up and down. I'd say they're not quite as reliable as a Toyota 4Runner would be, but you pay a lot less for them. I think they're pretty good. You can go places with them. A few more things go wrong. I think this 05 model year is pretty good engine wise. We're starting to see some issues with camshaft and lifter wears in the V8s of the sort of 2010 and up models. These don't seem to have that kind of issue. The diesels are, they're a category of their own. What these sort of mid 2000 Cherokees, there's a lot that goes on with those. They're kind of like they're Mercedes diesel, so they have the issues. But there's a few things that wear out on them, and some of them get used pretty well. But I think they're a pretty good vehicle. If you're looking for a good off-road vehicle, I think they're really good.
If you're in Vancouver and you need some service on your Jeep, the guys to call are Pollock Automotive. You can reach them by phone at 604-327-7112 to book your appointment. You can book online on their website, pollockautomotive.com. And also on there, we've got hundreds, no exaggeration, hundreds of videos on all makes and models and types of repairs. Check out our YouTube channel, Pollock Auto Repair, same story. 9 years of doing this. We're approaching 1,000 videos. Bernie, thanks so much. Thanks so much for watching and listening. We really appreciate it. Thanks, Bernie.
Thank you, Mark. And thanks for watching.